passenger. You see the picture.
Hey, Roger, get up here. What's up? Keep walking backwards. Do not do anything else. Do not reach down. Keep walking backwards. Walk back to me. Keep on walking. Now. Yep. You're in a fucking prison. That's what's going on. What did I do? For the rest of your fucking life. What did I do?
This past Saturday marks the 1-year anniversary of the murder of Breonna Taylor, and justice has yet to be served. Let's look over the facts. Welcome back. This is Real with O'Neal. March 13th, 2020 marks the date that Louisville police officers botched a drug warrant that led to the death of Breonna Taylor. Though protests erupted across the nation, the grand jury deliberations decided that only one officer, Officer Breonna Taylor, would be found guilty of wanton endangerment for indiscriminately firing his weapon into Breonna's apartment building. Attorney General Daniel Cameron claimed those officers had a right to defend themselves after Breonna's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, fired a warning shot towards the officers. So now murder charges could not be pursued. Listen, that human piece of breathing garbage purposely misled grand jurors into thinking those charges could not be pursued. Let me tell y'all why. But first, let me list out the main characters of this story. The officers that were under investigation and are most directly involved with the raid are Officer Brett Hankinson, Officer Miles Cosgrove, and Sergeant John Mattingly. The names listed on the search warrant included Breonna Taylor, Jamarcus Glover, and Adrian Walker. Adrian Walker being an accomplice to Jamarcus. For those who don't know, Jamarcus was an ex-boyfriend of Breonna and was involved in drug dealing. We all know what happened though that night. Poorly trained police officers claim to have adequately announced themselves. Kenneth and Breonna get up from their bed to investigate the noise. Kenneth grabs his legally concealed handgun and fires off a shot to ward off the intruders. And the police proceed to light up the apartment as if they were ambushed by the Taliban. Listen, though AG Cameron claims that they've interviewed a witness that heard the knocking, Kenneth Walker's lawyer, Stephen Romines, breaks down why that was probably a lie.
Your client saying he was acting in self-defense. When you listen to his 911 call, he clearly didn't know that they were police officers.
Absolutely not, and that is why the case was dismissed against him, was that he was reasonably acting in self-defense, and he's in his own residence, so he has a presumption that he's acting in self-defense. We've got a dozen neighbors who were interviewed by police as well, who said they never heard the police announce that they were police. There's no question they were beating on the door, but they never announced as police. Attorney General Cameron said, well, the two police said they announced. So we're going to start taking the word of the targets of the investigation as exculpatory.
But they also said, Stephen, they also said they had a witness who said that they heard the police announce themselves.
Yes, and that witness, Gail, was interviewed by the police 3 days after this happened initially. And he stated, I did not, exact words, did you hear them announce as police? He said, I never heard anyone announce as police. He was subsequently interviewed 2 more times over the next month by law enforcement, LMPD law enforcement, and he eventually says, yeah, I may have heard them announce they were police. In fact, I saw a uniformed police officer. That's after the shooting had already occurred.
The attorney that spoke on behalf of Breonna Taylor's family, Ben Crump, also stated that his legal team spoke to a dozen witnesses nearby that night who said they did not hear the police announce themselves. Crump said that he wants to know whether grand jurors heard from all 12 of the witnesses or only the witness referenced by Cameron. That witness, according to Crump and Romines, has changed his story twice. Mind you, the officers, if visibly identified by Kenneth, were not wearing typical police uniforms. And it was late at night, y'all. Coupled with the yelling and possibly the TV being on as well, it was clear that neither Kenneth nor Breonna knew that the knocking and the banging was coming from the police. This was made evident by Kenneth's making a 911 call asking for help. Check out the call.
911, Operator Harris, where is your emergency?
I don't know what's happening. Somebody kicked in the door and shot my girlfriend.
Okay, where are you located?
I'm at 3003 Springfield Drive, apartment 4.
3003 Springfield Drive, apartment number 4?
Yes. Oh, my God.
Okay, how old is your girlfriend?
She's 26. Bring it. Oh my
You said 26.
God.
Where was she shot at?
I don't know. She's on the grill right now. I don't know.
Okay, and you said you're in apartment number 4?
Hell. Oh my God. Yes. Hell.
What's your name, sir?
Oh, and of course, none of the officers were wearing body cams. But here's the real problem. The justification to obtain the warrant was based off of false evidence. In a May 18th interview with one department's public integrity unit, Shively Police Sergeant Timothy Salyer said that sometime after Taylor's shooting, and after he read the warrant affidavit, he asked Sergeant Mattingly about the affidavit. Sergeant Mattingly stated he told Detective James that there was no package history at the address. After he was first contacted by Mattingly, Salyer told him that no package has been received at the address, and the post office did not receive any packages either. To give some context, Sergeant Timothy Salyer is an officer from the Shively Police Department, a completely separate police department. Mattingly did this because of the post office and the Louisville Police Department have a bad relationship for publicly unknown reasons, which is already sketchy. But Sergeant Salyer went ahead and verified through the U.S. Postal Inspector to find out if Breonna Taylor has been receiving any suspicious packages recently for Jamarcus Glover. The inspector stated that Breonna had not been receiving any packages and that her residence has been flagged just in case. So this is kind of odd if you think about it, especially since the affidavit that eventually was signed by a judge clearly stated that the affiant verified through the U.S. Postal Inspector that Jamarcus Glover has been receiving packages at 3003 Springfield Drive. So either the U.S. Postal Inspector lied to the police, or the affiant, Detective Jonathan James, who procured the warrant, and Sergeant Mattingly lied about what the U.S. Postal Inspector told them. Listen, if the main probable cause was the assumption that suspicious packages were being delivered to the apartment and the verification of the U.S. Postal Inspector, then recent findings would deem the warrant as fraudulent, which would turn the drug raid into the police entering into a citizen's private property, aka they murdered Breonna Taylor. Oh, of course, no drugs, paraphernalia, or money were found during the search of the property. Go figure. So where is the justice? We are promised by our elected officials and public servants to uphold the law, and yet Black Americans participate in nationwide protests to only see a scrap of equal justice. Officers Brett Hankinson, Miles Cosgrove, and Sergeant John Mattingly are murderers, but Breonna's death will not be in vain. Thanks for watching, y'all. But before I sign off, I want to take a moment to talk about a good friend of mine who unfortunately passed this last weekend. Freddie B, aka Ben Billy, was a coworker of mine that eventually became family. He was smart, talented, ambitious, and far, far too young to go. It would be beside me not to comment about the nature of his death. I won't go into detail, but collectively as a people, we gotta do better. We've allowed ourselves to engage in anger before we engage in love, and when that happens, some of our finest get caught in the bullshit. In my own belief, death is simply the process of moving the soul from this place on to the next. And that understanding, I can comfortably say, I'll see you again, Freddie. Good night, y'all.
It's a war outside, looking very scary. Get money, any means necessary. If the world gon' end, that mean I need to hurry. Get money, any means necessary. If I die today, mama, don't worry. Get money, any means necessary. Get money, any means necessary. Get money, any